He logged the crossing as routine until the room went silent. Monitors froze, needles fell to 0, and a thin tone rose where static should be. On the plot, 31 Atlas kissed an unmarked boundary, and everything abated but us. When I said the word Comet, the spectrum tilted like. It listened and the intercom answered in my voice. Do not say Comet. The wall clock wrote 3 hours 3 minutes and 8 seconds and 3 hours 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Again, I used to be the kind of person who could land a problem on a chart and watch it surrender. Telemetry is the art of making faraway things behave like they're in the room. Names don't land vehicles. Behavior does. That's what I taught the junior shift that night graveyard. Coffee that tastes like regret. A training run to keep hands honest. We'd track 31 Atlas because the news wouldn't stop saying its name, and the kids wanted to see something their parents recognized. I put the adjutanti, make me say it yet into a ra deckblatt, like I was pinning a moth that thought it was safe. The lab was a budget cousin of the rooms I grew up in. 4 workstations, 3 rack mounts, a wall of monitors, a clock that thinks it's a judge, and a PA that coughs when no one's being brave. The building's door chime plays 2 notes up down when contractors sneak in late. The UP's hums mercy into every outage, the junior I trusted most. Leia keeps her hair tied with red elastic and her eyes on the plots the way some people watch faces for lies. At 3:03, our object slid into the grid square we de la Valette routine. Leia logged it, with the quiet grace of a pianist counting rests. That's when the room changed its mind about being a room. The monitors froze. Not a stutter frozen like they had been told a secret and were trying to keep it with their whole body. The analog needles on the legacy panel, the ones I keep out of spite just to shame the kids into respecting old math, fell to 0 so gently it felt like an apology. The static in our headsets thinned down to a single tone, narrow as a pulled thread, surgical and wrong. The clock on the wall wrote 3 hours 3 minutes and 8 seconds, blinked, and wrote 3 hours 3 minutes and 8 seconds again. Leah's hand stopped, mid-stroke, like a picture of practicing being alive. On the plot, the trace of 31. No, the object touched a line that wasn't there yesterday. New catalog, no note in the margin from some underpaid saint, just a strange boundary, faint as a breeze, that the plot colored, as if the world had remembered it too late. Okay, I said to the room, to the tone, to the kids, to the version of me that still believes in manuals. We're experiencing a brief display hang. Hands off the keyboards. Leia said, Is it the com? The tone tilt. Only a air. The kind of shift you feel in your jaw more than your ear. The PA on the wall took a breath it hadn't earned and spoke in my voice. Half a beat late, careful as a nurse. Do not say Comet. Leia looked at me like I'd thrown my voice. I shook my head once. The door chime played down up instead of up down. The UPS did a plateau. Drop plateau, like a man descending stairs he hadn't planned for. I didn't, she said. I know, I said. No one say the C word. The tone stayed level. The monitors kept their saintly freeze. The needles confessed to 0 again, in case we missed it. We watched our object hover against the line the chart had invented, without asking. For a breath, I forgot I used to believe in catalogs. Who I am matters only because of the things I still won't do. Ex-telemetry analyst. Ex-JPL contractor. Ex-sleeper. The last reading memo I ever saw in a room with fresh air said 3 things worth carving into bone. Receive only. Unknowns that listen will learn. Do not say the names they can use. The memo never used the word Comet. It said transient object the way a surgeon says complication. It listed behaviors. Thin tones with 0 drift. Power steps. Duplicated a 7-second line opens. Voice mimicry with half-beat delay. Instrument anticipation spluts moving half a beat before input. It called all of it the pattern. I called it my insomnia. We had a week of dress rehearsals. The roof compass did a half-turn toward nothing, and then apologized for existing. The front desk chime gave down up when our object's Ra crossed the local meridian. The logger kept a 7-second blank at 3:03 like it owed money. The Afoya fluorescent stepped in steps when the nightly news said the C word with its Sunday smire. I had clipped those scraps to a clipboard the way I clip my guilt neatly, with an alligator clip that thinks it's a jaw. Sir Mateo called from Station 2, voice trying not to learn a tremor. We're off the catalog. That line I'm not seeing it in the overlays. It's not in the overlays, I said, and hated the sentence for being true. Leia swallowed. Do we call it? She meant the object. She meant the C word. The tone waited like a fox in a christening dress. Logitas T el bonderi event, I said. No nouns. Behavior only. Mateo made a noise that people make when they realize their job description has limits. He typed TLB like he was writing an apology. The PA breathed for 7 seconds in 2, out 3, then cut. The clock put on 3 hours, 3 minutes and 8 seconds, again like a favorite code. Did you? Leah began. Don't finish, I said. Say object or say nothing, the Cam Argent said, because every classroom needs one. The tone tilted a clean degree of contempt. The needles refell. The monitors recommitted to freeze like actors who love the scene. The up stepped down and then back up in stares. Argent shut his mouth like he'd caught a bee. On the plot, the trace of the object kissed the invisible boundary with pixel grace. The cursor under Leah's hand flinched a hair before she moved it. She pulled her hand away like the desk bit her. Half-beat anticipation, I said into the log. Plot notes before input. I wrote it all down because writing is how we throw a rope around panic and pretend it as a pet. We tried the procedures we could remember without nouns. Power cycling is a ritual with no theology. You ask electrons to do it again, but right. Mateo reached for the rack. The tone rose a fraction like a theremin made out of listening. Hands down, I said. We watch. Watch what? Arjun asked, which is a fair question in a museum where the exhibits learn your name. The behavior? I said, and the pamivoy. Waldensoff came in half a beat later. Behavior. Leah's eyebrows climbed to millimeters, the exact height of horror in someone who takes measurements personally. The building confessed. The chiller downstairs did a step, like a man clearing a stair without looking. The exit sign flickered down up, stubborn, embarrassed. The door chime reheated its reverse note, like a diner coffee, not better, just back. Look, Mateo said. On the plot, a faint bruise widened along the boundary, as if the line had a thickness it had not disclosed. The object's trace ran parallel to it for 2 squares not crossing, not leaving us, if escorted by a rule we hadn't paid for. Say nothing, I said, because sometimes good leadership is just expensive quiet. Someone in the hallway intern, judging by the shoe, said the C word to someone else with the affable confidence of children. The thin tone in our room tilted through a thimble of frequency, like a teacher deciding to be disappointed. The PA answered in my voice. The mouth of a man I did not want to be. Do not say Comet. The clock flattered. 08 again, wanting that second, like a hobby. Leah stared at the PA. It's copying you. It's copying timing, I said. It likes the half-beat. What if you don't speak? Mateo asked. I didn't detone eld. The monitors kept their posture. The needles practiced flattening. I tried thinking the C word instead of saying it'd be, 'cause if a room is going to be a liar, let it be thorough. The tone did an almost nothing tilt. Leah's cursor twitched before her hand. Okay, I said softly. No thoughts either. The PA said. No thoughts either. The half-beat yawned between my sentence and its echo like the throat of a thing that knows your tempo. Mateo pressed the intercom call button as if faith were a muscle. It clicked to life and breathed into the room for 7 seconds, then hung up on us like a stranger we'd tried to love too soon. On the printer, which should sleep unless you bribe it, a thermal receipt spat 3 inches of Era font that read, Do not say Comet. 3 hours, 3 minutes and 8 seconds. 3 hours, 3 minutes and 8 seconds. We all watched it like fire learning manners. The boundary persisted. The object skimmed it, deferent as if the line were a rank. Arjan, who had learned bravery as a subject and not a verb, whispered, What if we rename it? If we say rock, or ice, or say object? I said, or say nothing. Nothing, Leah tried, and the tone let her have it. I wanted my red ink memo, and a room with carpet and a window where Dawn remembers it, owes you something. Instead, I had a basement that studied us with the patience of math. The kids looked at me the way you look at the adult. Who told you monsters are mostly budgets? I kept my hands where they could see them. Empty, open, unhelpful. The plot cursor slid half a grid before Leah's mouse moved. She left her hands in her lap. The cursor did it anyway. Stop, I said to the room. Stop, the PA said back, accommodating. Mateo's headset recorded 27 seconds of measured breathing, a single metal tap, like a ring on a guardrail. Then no file rolas if the recording software had decided to fold the seconds back into its pocket. He played me nothing and cried in the theater of his face. The object's trace finally crossed the boundary like a dancer stepping out of chalk. For a beat, everything toned lights, clout, chiller, door chime did nothing at all. Then the monitors woke with a collective flinch like people who fell asleep in church. The needles rolled up 2 numbers, with no testimony. The tone thinned back to the shape static should be when it's trying to be good. Leah exhaled the way lungs exhale. When they remember their job is not to tell stories. The clock sighed into 3:04, as if it had been bribed. We looked at each other like survivors. Pretend we know what to do next, I said. Log, TLB ends. Systems return in steps, no nouns. Leah typed word forward because her loyalty is a place you could land a craft without thrusters. Adagan, swallowed, so it was. Don't, I said. Gentle enough to be a lie. Not here. The PA didn't repeat me. It had what it wanted. The door chime decided to be up down again, like a reformed villain. The UPS chose a polite plateau. The boundary on the plot faded back into overlay nothing, like chalk rain forgot to ruin. It would have been a better story if the line showed up on a map after that. It didn't. It would have made sense if other labs sent memos with coordinates and new nouns. They didn't they didn't send them to us, which has the same taste. What we got were behaviors. Calls at 3:03, that opened for 7 seconds, and dropped without being anything. Office chimes, that played down up when news anchors smiled around syllables. You should not say. Screenshots from our training run, with 3 hours, 3 minutes and 8 seconds, twice in a cursor that moved like a thought. I gave the juniors the worst advice I have. Don't be nouns, be verbs. If you need to talk about the thing, say object. If you need to talk about the place, say boundary. If you need to talk about what we did, say watched and wrote and did not. That night, just before I learned to go home without sleeping there, I sat in the lab alone and listened to the building not breathe. The PA stayed kind. The tone stayed gone. The clock respected. 09, like a citizen. I wanted to say the C word out loud because the mouth is a traitor and likes to test fences. I didn't. The memo lives in me like a ruler. Unknowns that listen will learn. Unknowns that learn will test. Unknowns that test will measure you by your answers. So here is my answer. The only one I can afford to give you in a format that pays attention. At 3 hours, 3 minutes and 8 seconds, our object touched a line no catalog owns. Monitors froze. Needles fell to 0. Static turned into a thin, zero-drift tone that tilted when someone said the C word. The PA borrowed my voice. Half a beat late. To say, do not say. Commit. The building obeyed in steps. Power and lights, walked down and back up, like stairs. 7-second lines opened and dropped on intercom and recorders. The plot anticipated input by a half-beat. The cursor moved before a hand did. When the object left the boundary, the room remembered how to be boring, in steps. If your lab earns a night like this, understand that language is a switch, and timing is a currency. If you must speak, don't give it the name it can use. If you must log behavior. If your PA returns your voice, let it keep the half-beat alone. If your clock begs to write 08 twice, let it brag and take a picture without nouns in the file name. I'm going to end like a, had to begin in the liquid. Insufficient. True. There is a boundary out there with a taste for our grammar. When the object crossed it, everything remembered its manners, except the people. We kept calling it by a name that makes tones tilt and rooms obey. I say object now. I say line. I say behavior. And for the part of you that wants a rule simple enough to survive your own curiosity, do not say Comet. If you've had duplicated 08 thin tones that tilt at certain words, 7-second open lines, power steps, monitors, freezing when a trace grazes a line not on the map, leave me one word so I know our boundary isn't a private mythology. No label, no coordinates, no software names, no telephone diagrams, just na label. I read them at 3:03 with the PA unplugged and my mouth closed. We didn't obey the line. Everything else did. Next time, we will behave. I hope there isn't one.